Hello. Okay. So, bear with me. I just found a script I wrote a year ago. Um, and I'm I I don't know why I never recorded it, and so I'm gonna read it out to you right now and try to see if it makes any sense. Um, and yeah, so apparently I am going to be talking about a literary work this time, Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. Um, I loved this book when I read it. After I finished it, I honestly was like, "Yep, this is why I love literary fiction. This is a work of art. This is everything I want in a book and more." It was very moving. I finished it on a road trip to my hometown with my brother. Um, and I was silently crying next to him while he was driving, and it was quite lovely. Um, Not the silently crying, the ending. The book itself was very lovely. The road trip was okay. Okay. So now I'm gonna read off the script, so if it sounds very unnatural, I apologize, but I'm trying my best here. Okay, so I think I first realized how much this book was going to stay with me when the main character started talking about his relationship with his brother. Oh, okay. So this book also, the two main characters do not have names. So if you're wondering why I'm just not mentioning, like if you're wondering why I'm not referencing this by name, that's why. Okay. So, before I get into everything, let me read the synopsis to you. Two young people meet at a pub in southeast London. Both are black British. Both won scholarships to private schools when they struggle to belong. Both are now artists. He's a photographer, she's a dancer, trying to make their mark in a city that by turns celebrates and rejects them. Tentatively, tenderly, they fall in love, but two people who seem destined to be together can still be torn apart by fear and violence. I actually don't think I've ever read a book like this before. It was written to me as the reader. We, the main character, are the only ones that remain nameless, along with our love interest. This book, oh, that's what I literally just said. This book, the book was talking about how I felt, what I did, but it wasn't me. It was this main character who was experiencing this love for the first time, this love that neither of them knew before the other, and then having to navigate life as a black man. Um, I really did think the way this book was written was really interesting. I don't know if I've just personally never read a book like this before, but it's not like first person. Like, it felt really weirdly, like, personal, like, intimate. Like, it didn't feel like just first person. Like, it genuinely felt like it was me. And I think it was just like, I think it was just the result of really, really good writing. And I think that's what I was really feeling at the time, because it genuinely was just like, you know, it it really, like, I felt transported, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's the mark of a really, really good book. This book was just not afraid of vulnerability. It focused on open communication, and multiple times it was described that the main characters met in an honest meeting by just looking into each other's eyes. The story began like this. Their meeting began like this. Their love began like this. In an honest meeting, and instantly I loved these two. I didn't know them yet, I didn't know their stories, but I felt privy to something tender and fragile and complex. Just from the first 20 pages of this criminally short book, I knew how this book was going to be. I didn't know them, I didn't know their stories, but even in those first 20 pages, I felt like I was meeting them too in an honest meeting. From that moment, they locked eyes. They knew there was something more, in every sense of the word between them, but they didn't mean that it was easy. But that didn't mean that it was easy. The main character, like I said, mentioned this honest meeting multiple times, but that also meant that hiding things from her is increasingly difficult. He loved her, but a part of him felt like he couldn't confide in her. All the pain that he was feeling, his fears. There was a sense of shame, saying how you feel dirty with your heaviness and fear, and you don't want to stain her. He wanted to maintain. Ugh. I'm just reading the quotes again, and I'm just like, wow. I'm sorry, like, I think like I'm falling in love with this book again. Oh my god, where is my copy? Oh, it's in my dorm. That's on me. I should have known. I would have wanted to read this, but okay. Where was I? He wanted to maintain this air of love and pureness because while he spoke to her about so many intimate things, he left his hurt, his anger to himself. He pulled away and he couldn't lie to her, but he couldn't tell her because, and I quote, "To be you is to apologize, and often that apology comes in the form of suppression, and that suppression is indiscriminate." Oh, it wasn't that it was first person. It was that he was talking as to you, like to you, the reader. You know what I mean? I don't think you do. It was just like, it's just like this. To be you is to apologize. And that's exactly how the book went on for the entirety of it. And I thought it was a really interesting way to write, and it just felt so much more direct and personal. And yeah, this was directed when his love, this whole to be you is to apologize, and often that apology comes in the form of suppression, and that suppression is indiscriminate. This was directed when his love asked him if he was okay. He holds this belief that his mere existence is enough for him to apologize for, and so he suppresses. Ugh, isn't that just so, like, human? just to, like, to hold this belief that the mere existence of him is enough to apologize for. I feel like that is just so unbelievably human, to think that taking up space is just an inconvenience to the world around you, that the very action of taking a breath is an inconvenience, as if you weren't born to do it, as if you weren't brought into this world to live and to love. But sometimes this world is a little too rough with its love and with its plans and with its everything, that sometimes it really does feel like every breath I take is opposition to what I'm supposed to be doing, you know? I think I'm not really, I'm thinking of something else. Okay. Where did I stop? He suppresses all the pain and fear and anger he feels, and he lets it tear him apart, letting it fall apart for this belief instilled in him. This book did such a wonderful job of showing the main character's feelings through art. It was music, photography, movies, and in those aspects he let himself be vulnerable. To me, I felt like this was because it wasn't his pain or his feelings, but it was, in a sense, he was feeling all these things with these melodies and photos and films and words, but it was different. To me, it felt as if it was his way of releasing the feelings he kept inside, the ones he felt himself, with the art he himself created, by feeling their hurt instead of his own. I don't think I articulated this point very well the first time I had thought of it, I guess. I was just saying that, you know, while I think that art is 100% a form of expression and that people create art to express how they are feeling, I personally felt that in the art that he created, it was almost as if he thought his feelings attached to those paintings did not really belong to him, and that the pain that he felt belonged to the art itself, and not, like, it felt like he thought he was the medium and not the art itself. And I thought that was really interesting, and I don't know. I just don't know. And, okay. What did I want to say in the beginning? Okay, so I'm gonna read you this quote first. On some days, like today, when he called and teased you about her coming over, the gentle ribbing descending into a back and forth, which is never sharp, always underscored by rhythmic giggles, which don't quite match your large bodies. On some days, like today, the distance is short and easy. This is your brother, partner in crime, stubborn opponent, gentle man. And on other days, like today, in the same phone conversation, when the laughter broke and you could hear him gulping for air, could hear the panic in his body, trying to rise, could hear the tears, and he asked you to help him, to care for him, which wasn't a problem. It was never a problem, except you have been doing it for years, especially when your father's love failed, when your father was far, in body or in spirit, and the responsibility fell to you, without much choice, and it was hard, difficult for a child to take care of himself and another, impossible to do without one or other being neglected. On other days, like today, he reminded the distance is long and hard. Okay, that is That is my favorite quote from this book, and it was exactly why I had wanted to do a whole episode on it, because I thought it was probably, at least for me, it was the most moving quote, or I don't know, I think it was paragraph, I don't know, in the whole book. I don't know, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I thought it spoke a lot to just, familial relationships in general. I thought it was a very authentic take, I guess, and I thought of the resentment one feels for having to take on a parental role at a young age, but to also, feel so much love for your family and for your siblings and for the ones you cared for, that you try to make it easy, you try to make it short, you try to make it as light as possible, but sometimes things bubble and things happen, and you can't ignore that, your life maybe would have gone a different way if these certain circumstances didn't happen. And it's unfair to blame somebody else, but when those kind of resentments bubble, we tend to take it out on the people who were in direct comparison to the action or in direct contact with the event. And while that doesn't really sound like the fairest thing to do, it's human, it's what we do, it's how we act, and sometimes we don't act rationally, and I think that's perfectly okay, because I think it's just asking so much of people to always think rationally all the time. I personally don't act rationally all the time. In fact, I act irrationally most of the time. I think irrationally most of the time, but I'm just a girl, and I'm also just a person, and I don't have to be perfect. And I think I'm going off on a little tangent here, but I don't know, I guess stick with me. I think today people have set such an unrealistic standard for how a person should behave, that we've given people no room to make mistakes. And I'm talking about everyday mistakes, like getting a little too angry or frustrated over something silly because you're having a bad day. I think, well, yes, I don't think you should take things out on people. I think we should give people space to be angry sometimes. I think we should give people space to just breathe. I think a lot of people say that they understand where people come from, or I don't know. I think a lot of people say that they want to be, I guess, forgiving. And I think people really do try, but I think when it really comes down to it, we're really never as forgiving as we'd like to be. I mean, there are people out there who think that you just have to be putting on this brave face all the time, even though you don't really feel that way, because we have become the type of people that can't accept genuine emotion. And I feel like this is such, so I'm not American, but I feel like this is a general, very American problem, because I tend to see it a lot in America. I mean, I study there, and me and my roommate are not American, but I see this surface level interactions on a day-to-day basis. And me and my roommate were talking about this recently, and we were talking about when we first met, and we were obviously we just met, we don't know each other well, and we were having small talk, but we said that we weren't having small talk the way Americans do it, because it was still just a little bit deeper than the weather or how you're feeling or things like that. We were trying to get to know each other for real. And I overhear conversations a lot, at college, of people just talking about the weather for extended amount of time, and I think it's a part of that is because you're afraid of saying the wrong thing. And I also think it's that comes from a fear of being judged. And we've made it so easy to judge people that we critique absolutely every single thing someone does. I mean, go on any single social media app and you'll see somebody saying something is absolutely wonderful, and then someone right under them saying this is the absolute worst thing they've seen, and this kind of like back and forth creates this idea of like, or at least tells the creator that, well, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong? And because we're just such, by nature, such, at least I think so, insecure people, that we will focus on the negative and always think we're doing something wrong. So we'll always try to change up who we are, and we'll just never be something that everyone agrees with. And I think this is a very popular sentiment, and I think a lot of people know this, but I just think about this all the time. It's like, people ask so much of us, yet they are not perfect themselves. And no one can be perfect. I mean, Hannah Montana said it best, I think. So, what are we really doing? I think about this all the time, and I think it's also, personally, I think what I'm about to say is a very naive take, and I know that, but I'm just like, what are we really doing all of this for? What are we really acting this way for? I mean, why are we all so focused on being the perfect versions of ourselves instead of just trying to be ourselves? I know this sounds childish, and I know that, I know it's unrealistic, but it just frustrates me so much because I want to be like that. I want to stop focusing on what I think I should be, or how I think I'm supposed to be perceived, and just be who I am, because sometimes I think if I just let go, maybe things would be easier for me, and I wish that was the case, and I don't know. I think I'm just talking. And I completely lost, where the heck. I don't even know how I got here, to be honest, but, the quote I read to you is from the 6th chapter, and I don't know, okay, this is personal. I think that's why I didn't post this. Okay, well, what I said in the script isn't really that important. I'm sorry, I've really been liking this just talking, like, just completely unscripted kind of thing. I think it feels much more natural to me, and it's also just much more fun. Not that I didn't enjoy the scripts. I think I'd do the scripts more often. The scripts are more because, like, I like to know what I'm talking about if I'm talking about paintings, but here I feel like I'm talking more general about, like, my opinions, and I do add my opinions to my painting pieces, but here I'm kind of really just talking about, like, things off the dome, I guess, so it's less necessary for a script. I feel like, okay, every time I get to the, like, almost end of, like, the episode, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, I always start to just talk nonsense, and here I am, just talking nonsense. But I hope you enjoyed my nonsense. It's been so long that I've done these that I actually don't even remember how I used to end them, so I'm just gonna say thank you for listening to me, and a humble goodbye. Okay, thank you, bye.